Hey guys, and welcome to a new video. Today I want to talk about the Diablo 4 beta in my kind of experience playing it for the first time, and how did I like it, is it comparable to other ARPGs and that kind of thing. So first of all, I want to mention that I'm not the super try-hard when it comes to there's two forms of content creators. One is studying every game in its entire detail and trying to min-max everything, and I'm more of the guy that goes to a store like in the past, right, and just checks the games and it's like, oh, this game looks cool, let's just buy it, go home, install it, play it for the first time without any research, right? So that's why my opinions that I'm gonna share here is just purely on what I experienced and not what other content creators told me to say or whatever. This is also not a sponsored video or a sponsored opportunity in any case, so I'm free to say whatever I want about the game. Good. So first the base things. When you bought the, I think it was like $100, the Super Ultimate Deluxe Giga Chat Edition, whatever it's called, you had access or have access to the closed beta, which was this weekend from the 17th to, I think it ends tomorrow at 8 p.m. And there is 3 out of 5 classes available, which is the Rogue, the Barbarian, and the Sorceress. And then next week is gonna be the open beta for everybody. And there is gonna be all 5 classes, so the Necromancer and the Druid will come on top of that. Instead of trying out every single character, I decided to pick the Rogue, because the Rogue is seems like, or at least is something new, because like in the Diablo franchise overall, it was always like Barbarian, Sorceress, and those kind of things, right? Druid and the Necromancer is also like in Diablo 3, for example, right? Wait, is Druid in Diablo 3? No, it's not, but it's in Diablo 2 at least. But Rogue is something completely new. So first of all, the games that I usually play, I'm like a main Path of Exile player. I play a lot of World of Warcraft 2, and I also have like thousands of hours in Diablo 3, so I'm going to compare in these kind of like games to each other. So I haven't played Lost Ark, but a lot of people told me it has like a lot of flair of Lost Ark and stuff like that as well. So I can only make my experience based on that. So I would say, first of all, we're just going to go and slay some monsters so you can see the actual gameplay, while I'm just going to talk about all the stuff that I experienced. This is like the first zone, so I've done a lot in the beta version, so every time I want to cross like these kind of zones, it kicks you back out, because this is just for the future. This is not part of the beta, but the Act 1, this part is in here. And I've done like, got all the waypoints, I made the strongholds, I've done like half the side quests available, I've explored every single zone, I've been in like 11 out of 23 dungeons, and I collected some of these shrines, but there is like a ton more for you to discover. And overall, it's like a lot of things to do over here, right? So I've been playing for like 15 hours or so, and I could easily spend like probably another 10 hours finishing every single dungeon here to unlock kind of like legendary powers or some side powers that you can get. It's like the Codex of Power. They said like every time you do a dungeon, you unlock one of these abilities that you see in front of the dungeon. Like before you go in, you can just mouse over and see what you can unlock there. And I think those are like some perks that you can then enchant or craft on your gear to have that effect permanently, something like that, as far as I understand. And there is like a shit ton of those. Currently there's like 114 in there. I've done 11, and these dungeons take a reasonable amount of time. I would say like 10-15 minutes or so per dungeon on the easiest difficulty, so it kind of scales up quite well from the stuff that you can do. So let's just go somewhere. Let me try to find like a waypoint that is like more of the outer thing. The zone actually just always scales with you, as far as I've seen, because I've been running around doing side quests, and there is other people on like level 7, and they did like the same damage than I did. So there is some kind of like scaling based on your character when you attack a monster and stuff like that, because the guy with level 7 almost did more damage than I did on 25, which is a bit weird, but also makes sense when it comes to like world bosses and those kind of things. So basically, based on the playstyle, it's pretty much the same as like every ARPG. You go in, you kill monsters. This is like the stuff that is a lot of fun. I'm currently, as I said, playing the Rogue, which has like, yeah, kind of like a lot of things that I remember from World of Warcraft rogues. You have like something like Vanish, you know, you have like a Shroud, you have a Shadow Step, you have Dash, and all these kind of abilities. So this is like the skill tree where you can start. So here you have like a cluster with your basic abilities, which is like my auto attacks and stuff like that. They're gonna build up energy if you have like skills that help with the energy gain. Then you have like your core skills, which means it's like your spender, right? So building energy, losing energy basically, right? So build and spend. Then our next cluster we have here agility skills, which is like shadow step, which is like some caltrops, or dash ability, which is like a frontal like dash forward to enemies. And you have like a dash on every single character, which is like your space bar. This helps you with dodging abilities, because there is a lot of monsters that have like frontals or dead zones, like areas where they will spawn fire, so you need to like make sure to move out of that immediately. Or you have like something like dash, which is like a rogue ability, which looks really cool, but it's more like it doesn't really deal a lot of damage. But it kind of is cool, because the ability that I'm using is twisting blades. Means I'm sticking my blades into an enemy, and after a while, like after a second or so, they will explode and then fly back to me. So what I can do is just manipulate my kind of like combat style. Let me showcase that real quick, that I kind of stick my blades into an enemy, like over here, and then dash through, and the blade will then follow along me and just kill everything off. So there is definitely a lot of things that you can do in your gameplay, basically, to enhance your combat, to get more success, more damage, killing more monsters at the same time, just by the way you're playing, which I think is pretty cool. So then we have like so basic core, then we have like agility, then we go down here, we have the subterfuge skills, whatever that name is, I don't know, I have no idea. But this has something like dust shroud, which is like a basic shroud thing, so every time you get hit you lose a shroud. And you have like special perks, like this is like your base ability, and then the backside here you have things to empower your base ability, right? Then here we have like this is like vanish. Then we have like smoke grenade, which helps you like slowing enemies and stuff like that. And here's like some poison trap. Then here we have the imbuement skills, which I think is pretty good, just because of the shadow imbuement. So what this does, the imbuement is just like I use it, and now for the next spender ability, so not my auto attacks, it's literally like my blades here, right? The next two of them are gonna be enhanced with the effect of the imbuement, and on the shadow imbuement it makes it like an explosion, right? Then you have like a poison imbuement, a cold imbuement. Then you go down here to the ultimate skills. This is like your super big stuff, you know, and then this is not available yet, because you cannot get too many levels. You're like level 25 on the max, and there's like some other empowerments for your character, something like that. But I played around a little bit, and the rogue is basically a range and a melee type of character. So all the blue icons here are actually like bow and crossbow abilities, while the other ones, the red ones, are like the melee combat. And I find that the melee combat is for me more enjoyable than the range combat. So you have like barrage skills, or here rain of arrows. So skill tree wise, this is like one of the problems that I have with those kind of games. When you're coming from Path of Exile, like obviously you're used that you can do whatever you want at any given time with every character, right? Hey, if I want to have like a beefy marauder character shooting fireballs, but the fireballs are doing cold damage, and my cold damage is able to poison enemies, and I want to build my character with like energy shield instead of like life, I can do that, right? I can also play a sorceress completely melee focused, but in these kind of games or in any other ARPG, you have one class, and this class has its class-bound abilities. For example, like rogue has like shadow step, or like all these kind of like dagger abilities. Then you go to a sorceress, you have like elemental skills, fire skills, lightning, and so on, right? I don't know if you're gonna have items like based on Diablo 2, for example, that give you stuff like, hey, there is a staff that gives you +1 teleport, and not locked for sorceress, so my rogue can actually use teleport, for example, right? So that would be kind of interesting to know. I haven't seen any of these stuff yet, but there is definitely items that give you extra skill points, like you see here. The blue one here means that I get an additional rank from my items. So there is items that give you stuff like +1 to all agility skills, or +2 to like dark shroud and stuff like that. So all the common things are in there. But overall, as I said, skills and stuff like that are bound to the character, which I think is a big plus point for Path of Exile, and not for like any other ARPGs in that case, right? Good. Then there is a Paragon system that is unlocked level 50. I don't know how this is gonna look like. We cannot even click on it, so this is something we have to find out once it's live. One thing that is very interesting is specialization here on the top side. This is basically the way how can you play your rogue. So I decided to play with combo points, which means every time you see here my 3 combo points, every time I use like my basic ability, I'm gonna build up combo points, and the combo points are going to empower my core abilities, my spender abilities, right? And then I could say like, hey, I don't like this combo point style of the rogue, I would go for inner sight. What inner sight does is every time you're like approaching monsters, one of them is gonna get marked, and if you kill the marked enemy, you get like a bonus, and when the bonus, like, it's gonna see it on the bottom side somewhere here, in the side. When it's full, then I get a proc. Like here, there's a marked enemy, right? It's gonna like fucking blow everything up here. And then this bar fills. Once it's full, I get like unlimited energy for like 4 seconds, which is not really good in the kind of like PvE scenario over here, because sometimes it just procs and there is not even monsters nearby, so it's useless. But I can see when you do the world boss or stuff, you have like a really good uptime, because like you're hitting the marked enemy all the time. You have a really good uptime, so this bar fills up, and you're gonna have like a lot of single target damage, is what I assume. There is another one, the preparation one. I don't know what that one is, and it unlocks level 30. But I'm just saying, like, even though you have like your 5 core classes, you still have different ways of playing that. So I could play like, hey, I want to go combo point melee kind of rogue, or I want to go inner side with like bow abilities. I could mix some melee skills with like range attacks, maybe single target range attacks and stuff like that. So you do have options to make your character different in the way you want to play it, right? And I assume there's like gonna be a lot of things that you can do in the later game. Another thing here on the equipment part, you have like your classic things like white items, magic blue items, rare yellow items, and legendaries, and there is even one step further, which is unique. I think a lot of like these legendaries are like character wide. For example, like my helmet here, right? This is like this heal effect is, I think you can have this on every single character, but then there is obviously class specific. For example, when you evade or shadow step, you leave behind the cluster of exploding stun grenades, which is basically when I'm dashing here, this is like what the legendary does, right? And there is a lot of things that you can like manipulate your skills, because it doesn't look very appealing to me with the amount of skills that you have. I mean, there is quite a bit, but you're also like very starved on like your skill points, so you can only pick like one, and then you kind of move up. Like every time you spend one skill point, this like blood flows gets bigger and bigger, and when it connects to the next one, you can actually pick one of those. That's why I cannot pick any of that here, because the blood isn't fully reached yet, and I cannot do this in the current beta. But for example, you have a lot of legendaries that are manipulating your skills. For example, I use like flurry over here. Let me quickly spec 1 point into that so you can actually see that. So this is like a frontal flurry attack, and then I have a bow or another item that is currently in my stash. I cannot showcase it, but it says that my flurry attack is gonna be a circle, right? So instead of just a pure frontal ability, it's gonna cover like a 360 circle, so it's better for AoE clears. So you can definitely manipulate all the like kind of abilities with certain legendaries. There is also this kind of like cube system from Diablo 3, where you can extract legendary powers and craft them on other items and stuff like that. So you're not forced to do that, but as I said, you're gonna just pick the way that you want to play, and then just fill in the gaps with like your gear, and get more and more items that assist or place into your cards with whatever build you're playing, pretty much, right? Good. Other than that, yeah, a bunch of legendary effects. I did find quite a lot of legendaries yet. There's like maybe like 1 legendary per hour, kind of. I think I have like another like 5 or 6 legendaries on my stash. And one thing that that I saw, which was pretty interesting, I actually can show you that real quick. There is like these legendary powers can be on different items. For example, the first legendary that I found was a sword that actually made my flurry to be an AoE ability, right? And like, I don't know, like an hour later, I found a dagger that had literally the same affix on it, right? So, and they don't stack, sadly. So once you have 2 legendary powers at once, then one is just gonna be gray, right? But here, you have like a bow that says flurry damage in a circle, right? Then I have here a sword with flurry damage, and I think I have a dagger as well that has like the flurry damage. So I have 3 different weapon types that all have the same kind of legendary affix, which makes me wonder, can every single legendary power can be on every single legendary kind of thing, you know? Which makes the gearing quite more interesting, because hey, if you know, you never know, maybe there's like specific ones that can only appear on rings, and other ones that can like, maybe there's some stackable. As far as I know, there is non-stackable, because if I just equip those two weapons that have both the same stats, you're gonna see one of them is gonna be gray and the other one is gonna be highlighted, so stacking that doesn't work, but maybe there is something like that in the future. Good. What else can you do in the game? So basically, I started to just grind every single dungeon just for the sake of fun. You know, I was just like grinding everything. I'm doing like almost every side quest that I found, unlocked everything. And I'm gonna say the leveling aspect in the start is pretty much boring, because in the start, you don't have a lot of skill points. You know, you're gonna work your way up the more levels you get. But early on, you have like one ability that just is like an auto attack, and the other one is like your spender, and both are not dealing too much damage, but in the end of the day, this is all you have, right? So you're literally going into combat and stab some monsters, do one cool attack, and then you continue stabbing for like 5-6 seconds because you're out of energy, for example, right? But in the end of the day, the more levels I got, the more abilities I got, the better the combat system felt, especially once I unlocked my shadow explosion. So now I'm imbuing my weapons, I shadow step or dash into a pack of monsters, I do my AoE abilities, and I just see everything explode, and this is like, really feels good. But in the start it was like terrible. But on the other hand, it is good that way, because we can only compare. This is Act 1, the maximum level is level 100, I'm now level 25, so there is like so much more that should be there. But overall, just for the sake of Act 1, it's like so much to do. So I could spend easily another 10 hours if I want to finish all the other stuff to unlock all the different perks. The combat like really feels amazing. I can actually show you the world boss that spawned yesterday. So this is like the place where the world boss spawns. It's like an event that is timer based, and actually you can loot the boss as often as you want. So as often as he's there and you kill it, you can actually loot it, which I think is not the best thing, just because, you know, I don't want Blizzard to tell me when I can get loot. I would like to have it more in the way like in World of Warcraft, so you can do the world boss whenever you want, as often as you want, but it will only grant loot for the first time you kill it. And I can decide for myself, oh, I have time on Monday, so I'm gonna kill the world boss, or hey, I have time on the weekend. So I don't want Blizzard to tell me like, hey, either you're gonna be here at Monday at 8 p.m. or you're gonna miss out on loot and you cannot get this back and you fall behind, right? So I hope there will be a system like that where it doesn't really matter. So same with the daily quest, for example, right? I hope that these daily quests are like weekly based, so people that are more casually can decide, oh, I have time on weekends, so I'm gonna do all the weekly quests on the weekend, instead of like, hey, I cannot play on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, so I'm gonna miss out on 3 days of loot and experience and treasures and those kind of rewards, right? So we're gonna see how that looks like. Here is the spawn of the world boss, which was some pestilent kind of dude, pretty massive dude, Ashava the Pestilent called. And honestly, this thing takes a while. So you have a timer when this boss spawns, it's like 15 minutes. And I've done it twice, because the first time the timer ran out before we killed it. And the second time I was there, was like 2 hours later when it spawned again. I was in a group with a friend of mine, and we were zoned into a phase where there's a lot of like 25s, and we killed the boss when it was like, I don't know, like 6 or 7 minutes left on the timer. So the group was like way better, right? But what happens when the timer runs out, the boss is not dead, it would just go back where he spawned and just disappear, and it says like a world boss failed or something like that, right? Which is a bit awkward, but overall, these bosses do feel like a raid boss. As you see, we're just hammering down with like a bunch of people over here. We're 1 minute into the fight right now, and the boss has still, I don't know, like 90% life. So it's not like that you're just gonna go over there and just one-shot the world boss. They really have a lot of life, they have a lot of abilities, they are very lethal. Like here, he just auto-attacked me once and I was almost dead, right? And I think over the course of like trying this world boss, I died like 5 times or so. So here, just one guy just disappeared because he got bitten to death. So it's always like questionable, you know? We see it on a standpoint where we are level 25, and this is the first world boss that spawned for testing reasons in the beta version, right? I don't know if these bosses will only be available on level 100. It doesn't seem like it will scale, because as I said, we were like also like 10 people on the first time I tried it, and we were not able to kill it because we had too low damage, right? So I think if you're alone on this event, I don't know what character you will need to have to actually solo one of these end bosses, but I think the more you have, the faster it goes. And in this second time, I was pretty lucky. So if we scroll forward here, maybe we can just sneak in the kill. So boss is almost dead. We have like still 6 minutes left on the timer. And I think it dropped like 4 legendaries. Right here is dead. And where's my loot? The loot explosions goes down over here. 4 legendaries, beautiful, some gold, some rare items, some other stuff, right? And so it feels kind of rewarding with the amount of things that you can do, especially when you like travel around in the open world. There's constantly events spawning. Like if you just go over here, you know, you see on your minimap an orange circle, and then you just go there and there's like an event spawning where it's like a super big elite or some other things. You open a shrine, there's like a ton of monsters spawning. Like you know that from like Diablo 3, for example, with the corrupted strong boxes. You open it doesn't open, so lots of monsters are spawning. So a lot of cool stuff from Diablo 3 will maintain in Diablo 4, and I think it's pretty good, especially with the kind of currencies that you have over here. The red dust from PvP, I have no idea, there is no PvP zone yet, but you have these O-balls, which is basically your blood shards from Diablo 3, and they're on the bottom side. It stops lagging over here. It's like Kadala, right? So you just click on this guy, you have like a bunch of like randomized items, and then you're just gonna hammer away, and I just got a legendary ring. When the Dusk Shroud shadow would be removed, you trigger an explosion around yourself, deals... Oh, that sounds pretty good. Okay, I need to test that. Wait, Twisting Blades, Evade, Shadow Step, Grenades. So that would mean Dusk Shroud is like an ability that has like 5 stacks. Let me quickly test that real quick. So that sounds pretty cool. So, as I said, like, every time I get hit with an attack, I lose one of these Dusk Shrouds, and they give me, like, a special effect. I can't remember what it was, but it's like a defensive thingy, right? But it seems like they will now start to explode. I'm gonna test it real quick. Just for the sake of a beta testing, right? So, let me quickly go out of town so I can actually use these skills. So now here I use Dusk Shroud. I have, like, 5 charges now. See what happens. God, why is it so lagging right now? Usually not lagging, but you saw the monsters actually got some damage, but it's not really a lot of damage. I'm not sure if this actually would scale with the amount of points you spend into your Dusk Shroud, because I currently have 2 points into it, so they can get a lot stronger. But here I activated, monsters are hitting me, and it explodes for shadow damage. So yeah, I mean, there's like cool things to actually manipulate the way that you're playing, as I said before. And overall, I have like a pretty good feeling about it. So what happens if I put monsters into the town? They just... Good. As I said, lots of things to do. So, as I said, the strong, the events, the strongholds, all the side quests that give you like additional experience, gold, items, and stuff like that. The zones to explore, all about experience. Then you have even when you go to the... Let me see if I can get this. Was it on games selection? Challenges? No, I'm looking for a very specific Codex of Power, social clan map. Oh, how did I get there? There was this W. So, this one here. So basically, if you press W on your map, you come into the region progress. So this is kind of like renown experience gain. So this is like stuff that you can do in this current zone here in Act 1, where you get like bonus experience, skill points that are then unlocked for all characters on the realm, for example, right? So this is just basically for your character, and on the bottom side it's what forever for every character. So it always gives you like a reason to grind, and I'm like thinking this in a way that this is more of an MMO style. So like in comparison to Path of Exile, for example, right? You just level your character, and once you hit maps, and then you grind maps, you make currency, you craft items, and those kind of things, you know. In this game, it's really like you start in the zone, you get to the first little town with a waypoint, there's like a bunch of quests, you do all these quests, you go to the next zone, and you just continue this way. And honestly, it feels like more like an MMO than an ARPG, but the thing is, like, I've only experienced Act 1 so far, level 25, there is like a bazillion other things to do, but just for the sake of what I experienced now on this weekend, there is a shit ton to do. I'm wondering how much more there is to do, because this is just the first zone, and we're talking about this entire map here. So here will be Act 2, I guess, Act 3 maybe, Act 4, Act 5, I have no idea how many acts there are, but just discovering all of this took me like quite some time, and I don't think that this is even considered to be endgame. So overall, I gotta say, my experience with the game was very positive. I really felt like when I woke up in the morning that the first thing I want to do is grab a coffee, obviously, and then just keep on grinding because it is fun. The more I played, the more fun it became, because in the start it was very like slow, like very, very slow compared to any other game. So if you're wondering like, yo MB, what is better, Diablo 4 or Path of Exile, this is something I cannot tell you because it's not fair to compare two games that are quite different, just because, you know, PoE is for me more of a hack and slash game, and Diablo 4 seems to be more of an MMO for me, which I think is totally fine. And I'm just wondering what else will there be in the game. But just from the beta version, there is like so many things to do, and I'm really looking forward to next week trying out the Druid, and then in June there will be the release, and then we can explore the entire game. Maybe it is the way like other games where they spend a lot of resources making the leveling, the campaign absolutely cool, and once you reach end game, you sit here after 2 days and be like, bro, I have absolutely nothing to do. What should I do, right? So I need to wait until the end game of Diablo 4 is released, until I played it, to see how good it is, and then I can say like, yo, what is actually better. But the most important thing is you always have to ask yourself while you're playing a game, do you have fun? If the answer is yes, keep on going, you know? Don't let yourself influence by anybody else, because I've seen a lot of like negative criticism around the game, and honestly, I just cannot understand any of that, and I just tell you from my experience, I really enjoyed this like 15 hours that I stick into the beta version, and I'm really looking forward to next week for the Druid, and then on the final release. And maybe this is even the reason, because PoE season will get released on the, what is it, the 7th of April or so, then it's like April and May, which is like the active PoE month, and then in June the PoE League dies, but in June is Diablo 4 release, right? Maybe that was actually the reason why the PoE League got delayed by 1 month, and so they're not gonna fall. So we can definitely play PoE 321, enjoy ourselves there, and once the league starts to die, Diablo 4 is around the corner, so we can really stick like a month into it, experience the entire game without feeling the need to decide between games, which I think is very important, because there is no point of like only focusing on one game. And as I said, I'm looking forward. I have like, yeah, a good experience in the game, and yeah, that's about my 2 cents. Alright guys, thanks for tuning in, thanks for watching,